Airbnb, a place where strangers open their homes to travelers. A modern comfort, a convenience, and for many, a cheaper alternative to hotels. But behind the smiling profile pictures and carefully staged photos, there can be secrets hiding in the walls. Secrets you're not meant to see. Tonight, we'll uncover disturbing true stories of Airbnb guests who discovered they weren't alone. From hidden watchers to uninvited strangers lurking in the dark. These tales will make you think twice before booking your next stay. So lock the door, close the blinds, and get ready. Because once you step inside a stranger's home, you never truly know who else might be there. Story 1. The locked room at the Airbnb setup. Arrival at the house. Emma was a young traveler who loved budget stays and unique experiences. Instead of hotels, she often chose Airbnbs, convinced they offered a more authentic touch. Reviews had rarely failed her. She always picked the ones with high ratings, charming photos, and hosts that seemed friendly. This time, her trip was to a quiet college town. She booked a large old house turned Airbnb, rented by a host named Marianne. The listing looked cozy, a Victorian-style home, rustic decor, and a garden with ivy climbing the walls. The reviews were glowing, and the photos showed bright rooms and polished hardwood floors. When Emma arrived, the host greeted her with a polite smile but strange eyes, cold, calculating. Marianne handed her the key and gave a quick tour. The house was old, creaky, but beautiful. Still, one thing struck Emma immediately: a locked door at the end of the upstairs hallway. "Oh, that's just a storage room," Marianne said quickly, almost too quickly, when Emma asked, "Please don't worry about it." Emma nodded politely, but a small seed of unease planted itself in her mind. Suspense, strange noises. The first night, Emma settled into her room, unpacking her bag and setting her laptop on the desk. She made tea, watched a show, and climbed into bed. Around midnight, just as she was drifting off, she heard it, faint, scratching sounds. They came from the locked door at the end of the hall. At first, she thought it was mice, but then came a distinct sound. Footsteps, slow pacing, back and forth, right behind that locked door. Her stomach tightened. She reminded herself it was an old house. Noises were normal. Still, the footsteps kept her awake until dawn. The next morning, when she asked Marianne about it, the host's smile was tight. "Old pipes," she said flatly, before changing the subject. Escalation. The hidden camera. On the second night, Emma returned late from dinner. The house was quiet, dark, except for the small lamp in the hallway. She brushed her teeth, got into bed, and tried to shake off the weird feeling from the night before. But around 2 a.m., she noticed something strange. On the desk, near the lamp, a small red dot blinked faintly. Curious, she leaned closer. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't the lamp. It was a hidden camera lens, carefully tucked inside what looked like a clock. Emma's breath hitched. She quickly covered the clock with a towel, her hands trembling. Now wide awake, she stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, when the noises began again. Footsteps behind the locked door, but this time a low whisper followed. "She's here." Climax. The door opens. By the third night, Emma was paranoid. She packed her bags early, planning to leave first thing in the morning. But sleep still pulled at her, and she dozed off. Sometime after 3 a.m., she woke to the sound of a door creaking. She froze, her eyes wide in the darkness. The locked door was open. From her bed, she could see the hallway dimly lit by the lamp. And there, at the end of it, the door that had always been sealed was now ajar, shadows shifting inside. Her breath quickened. She told herself not to look, not to move, but then she heard it, footsteps, not pacing this time, approaching. The sound grew louder, closer, until they stopped right outside her room, and then the handle turned. Emma bolted upright, slamming her weight against the door before it could open. "Who's there?" she screamed, her voice shaking. Silence. But through the thin wood, she heard it, breathing, heavy, slow. Right on the other side. Resolution, the escape. Emma didn't wait. She shoved the dresser in front of the door, grabbed her phone, and called the police. Her hands trembled as she explained she was in an Airbnb. Someone was trying to get into her room. By the time officers arrived, the house was silent again. Marianne greeted them with a calm face, insisting Emma was overreacting. But when they searched the locked room, what they found made Emma's skin crawl. Inside were recording devices, old clothes, and a small mattress on the floor. Someone had been living there, watching, waiting. Emma left that night and never used Airbnb again. Even now, when she tries to sleep, she sometimes hears it, that slow, deliberate breathing just beyond the door. Story 2. The Man in the Closet Set Up, a Weekend Getaway. James was a software engineer who had been burning out at work. After weeks of stress, he decided to take a weekend getaway to clear his head. Hotels were too pricey, so he chose an Airbnb in a quiet suburban neighborhood on the edge of town. The listing looked perfect. A clean bedroom, a cozy living room, free Wi-Fi, and even a little welcome basket in the photos. The host, Alan, had dozens of 5-star reviews, described as polite, professional, and trustworthy. When James arrived, Alan greeted him warmly, showed him the house, and pointed out the basics. Everything seemed normal, if a bit too tidy. One thing caught James's eye, though. In the bedroom closet, a padlock on the outside. Alan chuckled awkwardly when James noticed. "Just storage, please don't mind it." James thought nothing more of it. After all, many Airbnbs had storage closets. Still, something about the lock nagged at him. Why would anyone need a padlock on a closet inside a guest bedroom? Suspense, odd happenings. That night, James ordered food, watched some Netflix, and then turned in early. He was exhausted. The neighborhood was quiet, and he was finally starting to relax. But at around 1 a.m., he woke to a faint thump. He sat up, listening. Another thump from the direction of the closet. His first thought was that maybe something had fallen inside. But then came a slow, scraping sound, as if something heavy was dragging against the wood. James' skin prickled. He forced himself to get up, approached the closet, and pressed his ear to the door. Silence. He laughed nervously, shook his head, and crawled back into bed. Probably the house settling, he told himself. Old wood creaks. But at 3 a.m., he woke again. This time, he was sure of what he heard. Breathing, heavy, steady breathing, coming from inside the locked closet. Escalation, signs of watching the next day. James decided to brush it off. Maybe he was overtired. He went out to explore town, had lunch, and came back late afternoon. But something felt wrong the moment he entered the bedroom. His suitcase had been moved. Not much, just shifted slightly from where he'd left it. He was certain. On the desk lay his notebook, flipped open to a page he hadn't written on in days. Someone had touched his belongings. He messaged Alan, asking politely if anyone else had access to the room. Alan replied almost instantly, "Of course not. No one goes in there but you." James didn't reply. His gut told him something wasn't right. That night, he set up his phone on the desk, camera facing the closet. He hit record, turned off the lights, and tried to sleep. Again, around 1 a.m., the noises began. The video captured it clearly, faint rattling, then scraping, then the unmistakable sound of whispering, low, muffled, like someone speaking through fabric. And then the lock shifted, just slightly, but enough to make a metallic clink that echoed through the room. Climax. The closet opens at 3:15 a.m. James woke with a start. The sound of the lock snapping open jolted him upright. His phone's screen glowed faintly from the desk, still recording. Heart pounding. He fumbled for the light switch, but before he could reach it, the closet door creaked open. From the darkness inside, a figure emerged. At first, James thought it was Alan, but as the figure stepped into the room, he realized with horror it wasn't. The man was tall, gaunt, with messy hair and wide, staring eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. His skin looked pale, stretched thin. The stranger stepped forward slowly, breathing heavily. He didn't say a word. He just stared at James, tilting his head like a predator studying prey. James froze, paralyzed by fear. The man took another step, then another, until he was standing at the foot of the bed, and then, in a low, raspy voice, he whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Resolution. The escape. James bolted. He grabbed his phone, shoved past the man, and ran down the hall, not daring to look back. The front door was still unlocked, thank God, and he burst into the street, barefoot and trembling. He called the police from a neighbor's house. When they arrived, Alan was gone. The Airbnb was empty, but in the closet, they found a small mattress, food wrappers, and clothing. Someone had been living inside that room. Worse, the man James saw didn't match Alan's description at all. Whoever he was, he had been lurking in the closet the entire time, waiting, watching. James deleted his Airbnb account soon after. Even now, he can't stay in rented homes without checking every closet, every corner, every shadow. Because he knows someone might already be inside, waiting for the next guest. Story 3. The stranger under the bed set up the perfect stay. Lena was traveling cross-country for work. After weeks of hotels and sterile rooms, she decided to book an Airbnb for a homier vibe. She found a charming apartment in a bustling city, clean, modern, and affordable. The photos looked perfect. Bright living room, neat kitchen, cozy bedroom. The host, Catherine, seemed professional. The check-in was smooth. When Lena arrived, she found a welcome note and a bottle of wine on the counter. Everything seemed perfect. But perfect things sometimes hide the darkest secrets. Suspense. Small signs. That night, Lena unpacked, made herself dinner, and tried to relax. She was impressed by how clean the place was. Spotless floors, folded towels, everything in place. Yet, as she prepared for bed, something nagged at her. She found one of her suitcases had shifted slightly from where she'd left it. Then, in the bathroom, her toothbrush was damp, though she hadn't used it yet. She brushed it off, convincing herself Catherine's cleaners had been extra thorough. But as she lay in bed, drifting toward sleep, she heard it, a faint creak, directly beneath her.
Escalation. The scraping below the bed was large and heavy, resting low to the ground. But the sound was undeniable, a subtle scraping noise, like fabric brushing against wood. Lena sat up, her heart racing. She told herself it was the pipes, the building settling. Still, unease crawled through her chest. She forced herself to check. She leaned over, pulled her phone flashlight on, and shined it under the bed. At first, she saw nothing but darkness. Then 2 eyes reflected the light back at her. A man was lying under the bed, his face pale, his eyes wide open, unblinking. Lena screamed and stumbled back, her phone dropping to the floor. The man didn't move. He just kept staring, his chest rising and falling slowly. Climax. The confrontation panicking, Lena grabbed her phone and dialed the police, whispering frantically into the receiver. But before she could finish, the man slid out from under the bed with eerie calmness. He was tall, thin, his clothes dirty, his hair unkempt, but his eyes never left hers. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered, his voice hoarse. Lena backed into the corner, clutching a lamp like a weapon. The man tilted his head, almost curious, then stepped closer. The minutes felt endless. She screamed again, trying to keep him at bay. The sound of sirens in the distance finally broke the silence. The man froze, glanced toward the window, and without another word, bolted out the front door. Resolution? The discovery when police arrived, Lena was shaking. They searched the apartment thoroughly. What they found chilled her. Inside a closet, hidden behind coats, was a sleeping bag, food wrappers, and bottles of water. The man had been living there secretly, quietly, waiting. The host claimed she had no idea, but neighbors whispered otherwise. Some said they had seen a man entering late at night. Others said they'd heard noises for weeks. Lena left the Airbnb that night, vowing never to stay in one again. Even now, years later, she checks under every bed, every closet, every dark space before she sleeps, because she knows what it's like to wake up in the middle of the night, find that someone is already in the room with you. Outro: When the Walls Have Eyes. The stories you've just heard were not about haunted forests or cursed motels. They weren't about legends passed down through generations. They were about something far more unsettling. People. Strangers. Living, breathing intruders who hid in the shadows of homes you trusted. Emma discovered that the locked room in her Airbnb wasn't just for storage. James found out that sometimes the host isn't the only one with a key. And Lena learned that the scariest monsters are not supernatural at all. They were the ones hiding under your bed, watching you while you sleep. Airbnb was built on the idea of trust. The idea that we could step into a stranger's home and feel safe. But what happens when that trust is broken? When the person smiling at you in the profile picture isn't the one you need to fear, but rather the one hiding just out of sight? Think about it. How often do you check the closets when you rent a place? Do you look under the bed, behind the curtains? Or do you simply drop your bags, turn off the lights, and drift to sleep, never knowing who else might be sharing the space with you? These stories remind us that sometimes reality is more terrifying than fiction. Because ghosts and spirits may frighten us, but it's the living, the unpredictable, the uninvited strangers who can truly make your skin crawl. So the next time you book a charming Airbnb or a cozy little rental, remember Emma, James, and Lena. Remember their voices, their fear, their warnings, and remember to ask yourself, what if you're not really alone? Call to action. If you've ever stayed in a place where you felt watched, or the walls seemed to whisper, or where you discovered something you weren't meant to see, share your story with us in the comments below. Your story could be featured in a future episode. And if tonight's tales kept you awake, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Whispers in the Dark, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another chilling story. We post new stories regularly, from haunted cabins to sinister figures lurking in motels, to disturbing encounters in homes just like the ones you stay in. Closing whisper until next time. Lock the doors, check under the bed. And remember, when you hear a sound in the middle of the night, it might not be the house creaking. It might be someone else. Someone waiting. Someone who is never supposed to be there.